first. This heating up debate over torture. Patrick J. Buchanan is an MSNBC political analyst, and Professor Jonathan Turley is a law professor at George Washington University. Professor Turley, I'm just wondering what could happen now. 2,000 more graphics pictures show up of these horrible hot dogging of these prisoners over there, nudity, dogs, all the works probably to come, dog collars probably this time around again. But the president says no Truth Commission. The president says, and through his spokesman, Robert Gibbs today, no independent counsel. The president says no prosecution of the underlings. What's that leave?
Well, it's a curious thing, because the president just said the day before that he would not intervene or get involved in what is a decision for the Attorney General. And yet he's now making a statement through his spokesperson that is the ultimate decision of an Attorney General, whether the Department of Justice itself needs to appoint a special prosecutor in order to prosecute. Now, it's not clear what the president means by his statement, but Holder would have to appoint a special prosecutor. It would be ridiculous for the Justice Department to investigate itself, because there are both career and political people at Justice that were allegedly involved.
Okay, suppose we had Ramsey Clark as Attorney General right now, a real flaming lib who really wanted to get to the bottom of this and really wanted to hang some people high. What crimes in the U.S. Code could he try people for?
Well, there's no question. No one has debated that it's a crime under the United States Code, 18 U.S.C. Code, to commit torture. Nobody's debating that. And more importantly, we're obligated in this country under Article 7 of the Convention Against Torture, for example, to submit these cases for prosecution. Indeed, recently a UN official said that we're probably in violation now because we helped write that treaty, and it obligates countries to investigate and prosecute. So we're not supposed to be like Serbia, where we say, look, this just isn't a good time for us to investigate torture. It's an inconvenient thing. It's going to be divisive. None of that matters. Under the treaties that we helped write, a country is morally and legally obligated.
Well, how come the Bush administration never prosecuted anybody?
Because they were violating the law. It's not too surprising that the people...
they're all guilty.
Well, it's not too surprising that the people that ordered a war crime didn't take these treaties very seriously.
Patrick Buchanan.
I think what's going to happen, the commission is dead, but I don't think the president, this is up to Holder. This isn't up to the president of the United States whether you appoint an independent counsel. I think what's coming, Chris, is the liberal wing in Congress will go all out and have a committee investigation. They will conclude that war crimes, torture was committed, war crimes, maybe people perjured themselves, and they will send this down to the Department of Justice. And at that point, you're liable to get enough heat on Holder that he's either going to have to sit on this and say, I'm not going to do it. Why? If, as is true, these laws have been violated, or he appoints an independent counsel. And frankly, I don't know how Barack Obama says, don't prosecute him and then prosecute him.
What is the precedent for a United States prosecution of torture? Is there any such precedent?
Yeah, we helped create it.
No,
we
ever done this in our 300-year, 200-some-year history of...
Yeah, as long as they weren't Americans. We prosecuted people after World War II for waterboarding, not just for torture, for this specific form of torture. The U.S. Senate led the fight to prosecute a U.S. commander in the Philippines.
I know.
For this.
You have a point of view here, and I appreciate that. That's why I want you here. But do you believe this is plausible, that Eric Holder, who's center-left, he's not very far over, will do this?
Well, I think it is plausible if he fulfills his oath. He's obligated to do this. This is insurmountable evidence.
You want him to do
war crime. Of course I do, because it's important for this country to keep its word.
You want to see prosecution of people all the way up to Gonzales, all the way up to the vice president, to the president? How high would you go?
Well, you know
they've signed off on this. We all know that.
You know, Chris, the thing that disturbs me most, the thing that I think is most grotesque, is not the thought of prosecuting high-ranking officials. It's that high-ranking officials ordered war crimes. And if we need to prosecute it to show the world that we are not hypocrites.
When did you first say this?
When did I first say that we should prosecute? Back in the Bush administration.
And why? I remember that. Why do you think there was no call within the legal community to do what you're saying right now? Why was this country so relatively silent? You were out there alone. Why was this country so silent on the possibility that war crimes were being committed in this country for 8 years?
Well, unfortunately, that was part of the distortive effect after 9/11. And quite frankly, we lost our bearings. And this really shows how dangerous torture can be. When you hate someone enough or you're afraid enough.
Okay, so what you think is possible here, Pat, what he's saying is that there was a cabal. The president, the vice president, his attorneys general, all the people working for him, all the Count Addington, the vice president's people, all those people agreed without any dissension, including Condi and the rest of them, this was the right thing to do, torture these guys, and call it something else.
I don't look, Chris. We know the facts. They made a decision to use enhanced interrogation techniques, including waterboarding on certain individuals of Al Qaeda to get information. They got the legal opinions on that. They went to the Security Council. People gave Bush various kinds of advice. The decider decided. If you're going to investigate war crimes, quite frankly, you can't go after the CIA that just did it. You immunize them. You go up the line to the lawyers, and then you go in and get the people who decided.
What do you think of this?
I think it would be terrible for the country, and frankly, I believe that Barack Obama, if he had to do it, I think he's going to have to give a pardon, quite frankly, to the people that did it. Here's what's going to happen.
Can he do it without naming names? Can he just say, I pardon them? Because Bush won't accept the pardon. Cheney won't accept the pardon.
Nothing is going to happen, Chris. Nothing is going to happen until you get a congressional committee that brings these people up, gets names, and sends this down to the Department of Justice. At that point, it is Holder's decision, and the president can say, don't appoint a counsel, or I'll fire you.
Let's take a look at Senator McCain. I trust him on this. He's been tortured. He has a very strong credibility in this. We're going to commend him on it later. Here he is talking about the possibility of prosecutions in this regard.
In banana republics, they prosecute people for actions they didn't agree with under previous administrations. We've got Bagram issues. We've got what we do with the Guantanamo Bay internees. We've got a whole array of problems associated with detainees. And to go back on a witch hunt that could last for a year or so, frankly, is going to be bad for the country, bad for future presidents.
Well, is this, what are we looking at as a precedent? We don't have a precedent for this in our own country.
Well, first of all, I'm not too sure what the senator means. A banana republic is a country that allows its leaders to commit crimes and doesn't prosecute them. It's a country that doesn't subscribe to the rule of law.
No, it's a country in which if you lose an election or you get overthrown by a coup, you get your ass out of that country fast because the guy just got in there is going to kill you.
No,
that's what he's talking about.
What happens is the test of a character of a nation is whether it's
He's saying that there's political retribution in third world countries against anybody that gets thrown out of power.
It's not retribution to enforce the laws. That's the definition of a nation.
So you don't accept what he just said?
Absolutely not.
You got Fujimura down in Peru who's just been prosecuted and convicted for what he did while in office. McCain is right about what is best for this nation.
But Fujimura is probably guilty.
Well, he was convicted. Yeah. Obviously, he's guilty. But let me tell you, I think McCain is right. From the standpoint of the nation, you will rip this country apart. Barack Obama won. The decisions Bush taken were rejected, basically, you can say, by the administration. Barack said, no more of that. That's over and done.
Here's Paul Krugman.
Stop it.
Admittedly, this man has a strong point of view, but it is a point of view in this country which has some prevalence. The New York Times columnist Paul Krugman this morning, before we found out about these thousands of new pictures of abuse, these investigations should, where appropriate, be followed by prosecutions, not out of vindictiveness, but because this is a nation of laws. We need to do this for the sake of our future, for this isn't about looking backward. It's about looking forward, because it's about reclaiming America's soul.
The polls today show that the American people still support enhanced interrogation techniques if you're dealing with al-Qaeda types and if you're trying to stop 9/11.
It doesn't matter whether a crime is popular.
Oh, listen, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter whether you're going to tear the country apart.
You're using the lingo of this administration. You don't usually fall for other people's lingo. Do you believe these are enhanced interrogations techniques or they're torture?
I think waterboarding is arguably torture.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I think, quite frankly...
Well, why are you using their lingo?
But look, because I think it arguably is. I'm not certain it is, because I would have done the same thing Bush did.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Pat, but I got to tell you, I have more faith in this country than you do. I don't think it's going to rip this country apart to enforce the law. This country's made of stronger stuff. And you know what? Even if everyone's against this, and it will be unpopular for Obama, he's going to take a hit. That's why he doesn't want to do it.
You're a philosopher as well as a lawyer, and both of you are philosophical people.
Why did Bush pardon?
Let me ask you a question, because I think you can win this argument. We do things that are awful out of necessity at times. Now, let me give you an example. When we were facing 9/11 in real time, and there was another plane up there, we thought, which was being used armed, basically, as a weapon, and was headed towards somewhere here, the U.S. Capitol, the CIA, the White House. There was a national recognition that the vice president in this instance would have had to call that plane to be shot down if we had a fighter jet available. That is an evil justified by an end, which is to protect our national institutions. Killing perhaps 200 innocent Americans were on that plane. So we do conceptualize the idea of doing bad things in extremis. Was that wrong?
No, that's not it.
That wouldn't be nothing.
No, it's not. It's not illegal. It's not illegal to take that plane down.
But is it illegal to try to get out of a person who has some information, you know he has it, and you do anything you can to get it out of him? Is that an evil?
Of course it is. If you're torturing them, it's against every. Yes, it's not only a violation of our morality, it's a violation of our law.
It is a violation.
KSM.
That's right. We signed treaties saying that we would not torture people.